is that Atlanta won. Some are calling it a job-saving win for their embattled manager, Gonzalo Pineda. Hurt, you agree?
For the time being. And I don't want to be too hard on Gonzalo Pineda because I'm going to get into this roster. A lot of this isn't his fault. The roster construction of this team isn't really his fault. This is one of the worst Atlanta United rosters since their inception. It can't be that Atlanta United, their glory days are the expansion years, but that's what it looks like. The Tata Martino years are the Atlanta United glory days. You look at this roster, and I got a few names that excite me on this roster, right? Your Thiago Almada, Giacomakis, whatever you want, but certainly a far cry, this roster, from the Tata Martino roster, or the Frank de Boer beginning of that roster, if you will. So a lot of this isn't on him. Carlos Bocanegra has a lot of fault at this as well. Garth Lagerwey, who just came in, he's responsible for some of this as well. But when you are on a 10-game winless streak, when you have lost the last 4 games at home, when you have had 3 mediocre seasons, and you're supposed to be a new age proactive coach, and you resulted, forget about it. Let me be pragmatic. I just got to win. Because if you see the possession stats in this game, clearly Atlanta wasn't trying to possess. Clearly Atlanta was just trying to be pragmatic and take advantage of the spaces that will be afforded to them on the counter. Credit to Gonzalo Pineda for figuring that out against this Inter Miami team, but the numbers are dire, and they've been dire for quite some time. This is a manager who's had 3 seasons at the helm. While maybe not all his fault, certainly what's going on right now with this mediocre team, mediocre roster, is on him. And I just think he bought himself some time. How much time remains to be seen.
Yeah, if we know there's a team in MLS that is ambitious and willing to cut ties with a manager, I think Atlanta United kind of fits that description, right? He's the 5th manager that they've had since Tata Martino, the 3rd full-time manager that they've had since Tata Martino. And it's not like they're giving guys a lot of time. De Boer got a year and a half. Gabriel Heinze got less than a year. And those were, guys with bigger names, certainly in the coaching world, than Gonzalo Pineda. But I'm with you, Herc. To me, this goes a little bit higher. You mentioned Garth Lagerwey, but Carlos Bocanegra is a guy who's been there throughout all that time. And when you see kind of what's happening with this team, you got to wonder if some of the issues at the front office are not affecting the field. Here's why I say that. Thiago Almada was great in this game against Inter Miami. He has not been great all year. He looks like a guy who wanted to leave in the winter, didn't get that move, and is playing like that. Giacomakis is the guy who was supposed to be their golden boot guy this year. And what are we hearing about him, Herc? That he's being linked to Cruz Azul.
Yep.
This isn't even a big spender down in Mexico. This isn't Tigres. This isn't Rayados. This isn't Club America. I know they got some money now. But come on, this is Atlanta United. This is Arthur Blank, who had $50 million to give away to U.S. Soccer. So you're telling me now you're going to let Giacomakis walk in the summer? Nah, I think there's some people at Atlanta United that got to look themselves in the mirror if they want to get back to those glory days that you're talking about. And it's not just Pineda.
You're absolutely right. I look at the roster. Let's look at its inception, its expansion year. Most teams suffer as an expansion team. They had some absolute ballers, some massive names. Miguel Almiron, Joseph Martinez, Tito Villalba. They were always pushing the envelope. If you look at the all-time transfers, like purchases for Major League Soccer teams, Atlanta United is probably responsible for 4 of
Ezequiel Barco, Piti Gonzalez. Think of all the money they spent on those guys.
Yeah, but if you look at them now, if you look at the way they're spending now, they're not at top 10 in salaries in Major League Soccer. This was a ownership group. This was a front office that always pushed the envelope. That's why I say, listen, a lot of this is on Gonzalo Pineda, but Gonzalo Pineda didn't have at his disposal what some of those Atlanta United teams of the past had. The material, the raw talent. Sure, he's got a few playmakers on his team, but 2 guys don't win you games. 2 guys don't win you championships. I think Gonzalo Pineda is learning the hard way that you can't try to be this proactive, free-flowing coach if you don't have the material. I think in this game, they played it right and they got a result. But if we're talking about who's to blame and what percentages, I think the problems go way further than just the head coach.